The influenza pandemic of 1919 was one of the most horrendous outbreaks ever recorded in history.
And it's probably the worst pandemic the world has ever known.
It ranked number 2 on the list of the world's most killer plagues, the deaths were tallied, adding up to an estimated 50 million lives claimed. The invasion of this flu originated in Spain. From there, it spread to various other parts of the world, including the United States. It was first discovered in Boston upon arriving in America. From there, it quickly spread to New York, Philadelphia, and beyond, following the railroad lines.
People were absolutely panicked because somebody could be playing bridge one night and they would be dead the next day.
This flu came about in 2 phases. The victim would first fall ill with something known as the 3-day fever. One would suffer intense fatigue along with a headache. It was a mild sickness where only a few deaths were reported. The disease would soon return weeks later in its second phase. The fever became more severe, accompanied by more side effects. The second phase kicked off with the infected person bleeding from the ears and nose multiple times. Following that, a fluid would fill one's lungs, causing coughing fits, which were often bloody. These coughing fits were sometimes so powerful that even some patients tore their abdominal muscles in the process of it. The fluid buildup that caused the cough attacks could also produce pneumonia. Because of the lack of oxygen, the patient would often turn an eerie blue along with black feet. Adding to their pain, many suffered aches that felt like bones being broken. But this wasn't all, whereas the victim could also contract meningitis of the brain. This was often the final blow for many people. During these 2 years the epidemic lasted, death came knocking on the door for 50 million people. Though this is an astonishing amount, even more people contracted it. The total amount of people that caught this virus added up to 1/5 of the world's entire population. At this time period, there was no such thing as vaccinations, so people tried just about anything to try and rid themselves of this disease.
Many cures were claimed to work by numerous people, though almost all had no effect. Some said to place onions around one's house in hopes of the germs living on it rather than on people. Others tried soaking in warm baths and applying heat packs to their heads.
And so they did all kinds of things. They were wearing face masks, and in fact the police all wore face masks. They were carrying little pouches of garlic and onion, just anything that they thought would protect them from the flu.
Some people even washed the inside of their nose with soap and water every morning and before bed. They also forced themselves to sneeze after doing so and breathe heavily. People also tried eating lots of porridge and drinking a great amount of whiskey.
They had no idea that they were leaving exposed the very place where flu enters the body, their noses.
The influenza pandemic of 1919 set a precedent for future surgical sanitation masks being worn over the nose.
And I remember the church bells ringing every half hour, people dying in the town.
In these times, people were desperate for help. Many people volunteered as nurses to try and help the sick. This was a huge risk for the nurses, as they were highly exposed to the disease with all the sick people around them. Their assistance helped cure some. However, many still perished. As one volunteer named Lieutenant wrote,
"It was sure pitiful to see them die. I was right alone with them in the wards, and each time, the first one that dies unnerves me, and I have to go to the nurses' quarter and cry it out."
The influenza did not just appear in the 20th century, but also revealed itself in present times as well. Recently, in 2009, an outbreak of this disease, now commonly known as the swine flu, hit America. It was not nearly as bad as the epidemic in 1919, but hundreds still died. Furthermore, it also appeared in the movie Twilight.
Since 1918, that's when Carlisle found me, dying of Spanish influenza.
It is also in the book Pale Horse, Pale Rider by Catherine Ann Porter.
Miranda was ill, delirious with Spanish influenza. Her landlady wanted her out. I tell you, this is a plague. Plagues, my God! And I've got a house full of people to think about. The influenza pandemic of 1919 revolutionized medicine in America and the world. It did so through the way doctors viewed diseases in medicine and the prevention of diseases like the influenza.
The influenza caused a greater reaction in the present-day medicine world in how conscious people are and their precautions to diseases, such as annual immunizations and health checks.
The influenza epidemic reformed America's approach to infectious disease. It set a precedent for future elevated levels of general health and well-being, reforming the medicine world entirely.
I had a little bird, and its name was Enza. I opened the window, and influenza.